This is Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
What a chaotic weekend in sports. Had a near comeback for Team USA at Bethpage Black. We did get the greatest MLB division comeback we've ever seen in baseball history. 3 top 5 teams go down in college football. One half of the WNBA final was set with a fourth quarter rally. And in the NFL Sunday, you can't win them all, especially if you tie. We'll get into it all as we welcome you into this Monday edition of Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. 40-40 was the tie last night between the Packers and Cowboys. A back and forth thriller. We saw 7 different lead changes in this one, yet nobody gets to walk away a winner.
Yeah, and people, of course, just complained about it nonstop on social media, which is all that is used for. I thought it was odd that the Packers were very clearly playing for a tie.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the way that they handled that drive near the end deserved to lose it with the way that they handled the penultimate play where they were trying to throw it into the end zone, but then almost ran out of time. Also, as it was pointed out by many, where's the hometown clock operator then? You let that second run off. What are you doing? Why are you trying to be good at your job? A really weird end, but a fun one at that. I mean, what we were talking about, was it at the 2-minute warning? Was it 13-2 or whatever it was in the first half? And the whole entire thing explodes for a 40-all tie.
Yeah, it ends up being, so it's 13-2. We end up getting a 16-13 half.
Yep.
So brutal beat if you had the Packers in the first half, obviously. But for the full game, I know a lot of people had a lot of confidence in Green Bay in this spot. Can't get it done, and that defense that we've been touting as being the best in the league potentially gives up 40. And kudos to Brian Schottenheimer, honestly, for what looked like just a completely weird lost type of a start for the Cowboys offensively. They ended up having an awesome day.
So 2 things. To that point, remember, and we haven't seen the updated numbers for, I think, 2 weeks now. But the first 2 weeks, we were talking about those stats. Expected points added on scripted drives. And it's a sign of how well coordinated your offense is, how good is your offensive coordinator. Schottenheimer's been one of the best, it looks like, in terms of those scripted drives. And overall, this offense has been great. I think we have a clear comeback player of the year winner here in Dak Prescott, but we'll see if that's going to be the case. I'm not tainted in any way, shape, or form by my investments. And I'd also point out, I'm going to read this to you. Micah Parsons and the dominant Packers defense, what a joke. Parsons is not much of a factor in this game, and this is why I said the Cowboys did the right thing by dealing him instead of doing another bad contract.
That is a quote from
VSiN's own Matt Humans. At Matt Humans 24/7.
Make sure you tweet at him.
I would tend to disagree. I also do like that somebody responded with taking a victory lap mid-game week 4 might be the most desperate I've ever seen, to which Matt Humans responded, "You're a clown with 400 followers." Shut the bleep up. Never changed, Matt.
To your point on Dak, though, you look at the numbers, 31 of 40, 319 yards, 4 total touchdowns, no picks. Great day for him. And honestly, that was kind of the tip of the iceberg yesterday. We had a lot of things going on, and week 4 is not over yet. We still have a Monday Night Football doubleheader to come tonight, which we will preview at length with the help of a couple great guests. So let's set the table with everything else we have to come here today on the show with the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
So, for Monday night, we have the Jets, who are a 3-point road dog in Miami, total 44.5, as well as Cincinnati at Mile High getting 7.5 points against the Broncos, total 44.5 there in 30 minutes. Jay Morrison, Bengals beat writer at Sports Illustrated, is going to stop by the show, give us his perspective on what has been just a brutal start for the Bengals since Joe Burrow went down with injury. Last week, an abysmal performance. Then in hour 2, VSiN betting analyst and market insights expert Josh Applebaum is going to help us break down where the money is going, how this game, both games rather, are being bet from the public and sharp perspective.
A quizzical performance from Cincinnati, and even more so given what the Vikings just did this last weekend in Dublin against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So curious to see if that was just a one-off or if against another very good defense, we're going to start to see this thing struggle. And the very quiet season so far for one Jamar Chase and what we have not seen from him, especially post-injury to one Joe Burrow.
We both have bets in these games, lots of injuries to update you on, and we will get to it. We will also talk a little college football later on in the show, and do you approve this move? Week 6 already here, and we've got some interesting early line moves after the game spreads and totals opened yesterday. So fun, do you approve this move coming up?
And there's a line move that I vehemently disagree with.
You say that every week.
I do. Maybe there's going to be
Is
one
there
that
really
I
one
get.
today?
Yeah, there is.
One game in particular, actually, we saw an interesting, multiple flip of favorites. So we'll get into that and more.
Snap, snap.
Something like that. Something like that. And I mentioned the injuries we'll get to for Monday Night Football. Lots of NFL injuries coming out of the Sunday slate. And we'll start with what was a statement game for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs yesterday against the Ravens. They're 37 points, the most we've seen from a KC team since week 3 of the 2023 season. But Baltimore, meanwhile, falls to 1-3. And I think the word falls makes a lot of sense with how many of their players have continued to fall down too with these injuries. We know Lamar Jackson goes down with a hamstring yesterday, left at the end of the third quarter. He's going to undergo testing today. Haven't seen any update there, but John Harbaugh did say post-game they didn't know the severity yet. Their offensive tackle, Ronnie Stanley, leaves the game with an ankle in the first half. Roquan Smith and Marlon Humphrey lost to hamstring and calf injuries. Second-year corner Nate Wiggins suffers a chest injury. This after Nnamdi Adeleke is already on injured reserve with a neck injury. Kyle Van Noy, Travis Jones, and Jair Alexander all missed the game.
And look, if he is, Lamar Jackson, going to be injured and miss some time, you have the Texans and the Rams coming up at home. So this is going to be a brutal stretch for this group. And we knew the beginning of the season was going to be pretty tough. But I'll say, look, I've been adamant, and I'm going to hold out a little bit, but I will give ground and see that I'm probably wrong here in that. I kept making the case look, Bills, Lions, very good offenses. You're not going to freak out too much about some of these high point totals for this defense because injury and the fact that in today's National Football League, these games tend to be high scoring. But then you get another one yesterday where you're giving up 37 points on top of all of the injuries, 382 yards. Actually, in terms of yards per play, if you're looking at it from that measure, you outgained the Chiefs on a per play basis. So in theory, you should have probably deserved a better fate here overall. The real concern is just all these injuries are now piling up for the Ravens. And in theory, you could look at this team starting 1-5 by the time they get to mercifully take on the Chicago Bears on October 26th. That's coming after their bye. So we'll see if Lamar Jackson is going to be injured or hurt. Even if it does play, there is a very realistic chance that you can lose to the Texans and the Rams and be in a desperate situation going into your bye week.
And as we talk about this spot, though, that the Baltimore Ravens are in, still minus 200 in the division because of the state of the division. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have had a great start, 3-1 to the year, but you've referenced it a lot, how much of that has been Fugazi. They're plus 240 in the division. The Cincinnati Bengals that we're talking about, and they not having their MVP quarterback in Joe Burrow, 12-1. And the Browns led by Joe Flacco sitting 25-1. The Ravens are still also the second shot in the AFC at 4-1, third shot to win it all. Buffalo, your 4-1 favorite. The Philadelphia Eagles 7-1. And then the Ravens tied with the Packers at 8-1 in your Super Bowl odds on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm going to be curious to see, as if you mentioned, I've been adamant that you look at these numbers for Pittsburgh. There's no way you can realistically make the argument that they're an elite team at this point right now, despite the record of being 3-1 to start the year through the first 4 games. You talk about learning a lot about a team. You do have the Bengals coming out of this next week, or excuse me, the Browns coming out of this bye, which that pass rush is going to be very formidable, as we know, and how good they've been defensively. Bengals, Packers, Colts, Chargers, Bengals again. We'll learn a lot all the way through all the way through November of whether or not the Steelers team is. So the whole reason I bring this up is be curious to see if the Ravens struggle, and I don't want them to be 1-5 particularly, but they're not dead by any stretch to win this division as the odds reflect. But I'd like that to get a little bit shorter because I still think that this team, if Lamar's not going to miss any time, that they're going to be fine in the grand scheme of the AFC North, which looks like it's going to be awful.
What's kind of a bummer about the 1-3 start is that you still can't really get a buy low on Baltimore at this point. But as we kind of follow this up, there were a number of injuries. Another huge one for the New York Giants, who just can't seem to have nice things. They finally get their first win yesterday in the debut of their rookie quarterback, Jackson Dart, but down goes Malik Neighbors, confirmed this morning. Torn right ACL. He is done for the year, and he's the best weapon that offense has. Yeah, I mean, now it's going to fall. It's tough because you have your rookie quarterback. We were talking about this yesterday during the game. They end up pulling off the victory, maybe due to an injury suffered on the other side. But regardless, you look at this team, you're trying to break in a young signal caller with some pretty young pieces at some key spots. Never really good to get a guy like Neighbors sidelined for the rest of the year. But we'll see. Dable seems to be pretty thrilled with Jackson Dart. He played relatively well in the game against the Chargers. So I think that you're going to miss him, but to what degree is going to be curious to see as we move forward because Dart hasn't really had any time working with him. I saw that. So that post game hug and like the head-to-head with Tobel.
You mean when he was nuzzling his neck?
Going everywhere. And it was like, this is the I'm not getting fired with you, my quarterback hug. Something like that.
Yeah, you still might get fired.
There's still plenty of time. Now, with that win, so
like rubbing
remember,
his 5 o'clock shadow into his neck.
the Giants were a 6.5-point home dog in this spot, closed 5.5 against the Los Angeles Chargers, and they had a significant injury of their own up front. Joe Alt went down in the first quarter of this game, had to be carted off the field, still awaiting some imaging to know more about that. But for an offensive line that's already down Rashawn Slater, how significant is this for that group?
So we have all the TVs on in here. They have McAfee on. There was a scrolling like line at the bottom that said Alt wanted to get back into the game yesterday.
Okay.
So
you don't usually hear that from a guy that gets carted off of the field.
Yeah. So I don't know how much of that is just like machismo, like I'm going to get back in this thing. And they're like, buddy, your ligament's hanging on by a thread. We're not going to put you back in there. So we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but that's generally a positive. If you're talking about a guy feeling like his own body is good enough to get back into a game. But if he's going to miss extended time, as you mentioned, we're already down multiple bodies here along this group. And we have seen better offensive lines tear apart an offense because, they've been torn apart with injury. They're bad. Look at what's happening with the Houston Texans. So this is going to be a really big thing. Offensive linemen don't really move markets. You can make an argument this one might be the more impactful one considering what's already happened along this offensive line to begin with.
100% agree with you. And another offensive line to keep an eye on here in the near future, their Minnesota Vikings. Yep. Ryan Kelly had another concussion, did not play the second half of that, lost to the Steelers over there in Dublin. And Ryan O'Neal, right tackle, knee injury. Kevin O'Connell said they're focused on his MCL post-game, so we'll see ultimately what that looks like. But it was not a good performance for them up front, to say the least.
And now you get the Browns on a neutral. That's rough if you're going to be down 3 guys.
Okay, we're just getting started here on Money Moves. When we come back, October baseball is upon us with the MLB postseason officially set. Time to take a look at some of these series odds. Plus, only one can be crowned the World Series champ. Who do we think is the most likely of the 12-team field to get there and win it all? Talking it all next on Money Moves.
Did you know your credit card points and miles can lose value to inflation? Credit card companies often reduce the redemption value of your points and miles. Now imagine a credit card with rewards that can grow in value. With the Gemini credit card, you can earn Bitcoin or one of over 50 other cryptos instantly with no annual fee. Every swipe at the store or gas pump earns you instant rewards deposited straight to your account. Plus, sign up now for a $200 Bitcoin bonus to kickstart your rewards. Visit Gemini.com/card today. Check out the link in the description for more information on rates and fees. Again, if you're looking to invest in Bitcoin but don't know where to start, the Gemini credit card makes it easy.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're learning JVT doesn't know how to wink. No, just kidding. He does know how to wink, but there's a challenge, apparently. I learned that in the last 30
my other eye goes with it. I can't do it.
Can you do both, or can you only do one?
Can I blink? Yes.
No, I mean, one at a time. Can you only do the right?
Yes, I can do that. But it's just, it's very difficult.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
But blinking is something I can do. I do it daily.
My little sister, when we were trying to teach her how to wink, that's what she would do. She'd look at us like dead in the face and just...
Yeah, kids are pretty stupid.
That's not it. She got there eventually, I think, actually. Haven't checked in a while. That said, welcome back to Money Moves. Lots to get to here, including the MLB postseason, which is upon us. We are just around the corner from October baseball. The postseason field is set. The Los Angeles Dodgers looking to begin their World Series title defense in earnest against the Reds. While no team has been able to repeat since the Yankees a quarter century ago, they will try to do so as a 5-1 shot on the board. Your World Series favorite entering the postseason, the Philadelphia Phillies, plus 425, followed by the Seattle Mariners, plus 450. So pretty tight odds atop the board here, JVT, but most people I hear talking about the MLB postseason is that it's pretty wide open.
I mean, it's because baseball's a stupid sport at times. We say this about hockey every once in a while with the random variance when it comes to shots on goal. But, hey, especially at the beginning, in a best-of-3 series where you might spend 2 games just swatting line drives to defenders and having no shot, I mean, you might get unlucky here. And then you get instances where you get a series, for example, Cleveland and Detroit, where initially you would look at this and go like, well, what's going on here? Cleveland won the division. The Detroit Tigers just collapsed. Why would they be favored? But when you have such a massive favorite in a best-of-3 getting the first start with Tarek Skubal, it's going to put you in a pretty good position. As I learned last year when we had that blackjack tournament and I had the Houston Astros, but they ran into the bleeping Detroit Tigers and Scooble in the first game, and sure enough, they got absolutely shut down. So baseball is, when you look at across the board, I think Adam talked about it. In theory, it's wide open. There's all these teams I think that you can look at and make a very strong case to win it. But for my money, figuratively and literally, let's go Mariners.
Well, that is a good note, though, what you said about the best of three. So reminder for the wild cards, it is a best of three format, and game ones have been critical under this format. Teams that win game one of the previous 20 series, 18 of them have gone on to win the set. So 90% clip. And as we look at the American League wild cards, you mentioned already Tigers, Guardians being one, Red Sox, Yankees the other. The Guardians have this masterful comeback down the stretch. They come back from 15.5-point games back. No team ever in MLB history has been more than 15 games back to win a division. They did it. They beat Scooble the other day. Do you think they can do it again? Game one of this set for the Tigers, Scooble on the hill, minus 169 road favorites in Cleveland.
I mean, they beat Scooble, but in the 3 runs that were allowed in his innings pitched, he only was charged with one of them. He still struck out 8. I think
it was 5 of 6 down this stretch, too, against them head-to-head in that losing streak.
Oh, totally. I think Adam, and by the way, go to vsin.com. Adam has some great write-ups previewing these series. You know, as he put it, it's a really good test of like momentum versus what you're looking at in terms of actual measurement of some of these teams. And if you look at Detroit, I think there's just quite a few more edges that if we're just evaluating them on paper outside of the narrative collapse that just happened, it's not even a narrative, it's a factual one, then I still think that you're in a position here where it would be Detroit in a short series like this. Both offenses stink when you look at their overall metrics and like weighted runs created plus all sorts of different things. This is going to be, it would seem on the surface, a pretty low scoring series between these two. It's just whether or not whose pitching is going to hold up. And I just think if this was a best of 7, I wouldn't be running to go and back Detroit. But the fact that you've got Scooble to get this thing started, I don't like those last 2 starts. I'm not really too worried about it. By the way, let's not ignore either that, yes, on the road in Cleveland, they ended up losing that start. But against Cleveland at home, he struck out 9, pitched 6, and only gave up 1 earned run as a solo shot. So he, over the course of his last 2 starts, both against Cleveland, he has struck out 17 over the course of 12 innings and there's been charged, we'll say, with 2 runs. That's a pretty good outing. And the Tigers are going to be in a position to get this thing done. If this was a longer series, I think you're really looking at Cleveland. I can't wait to ask Adam about this tomorrow because from a bullpen standpoint, pretty big edge for Cleveland overall. 3rd in bullpen ERA and expected ERA. They lead the league in bullpen fielding independent. So over a larger sample size, I think you feel better there. But at a best of 3, when I've got Scooble getting my first start, and we have a somewhat unlucky guy in Jack Flaherty with some underlying metrics that paint a pretty positive picture, getting the second, I think to me it would be Tigers or nothing here.
Okay. Again, Tigers minus 125 series favorites. The Guardians available plus 105, and then that game 1 price on Cleveland plus 138 at home. Detroit minus 169, low total with those pitchers, by the way, sitting 6 is a little bit of juice to the over at minus 114. How about Yankees, Red Sox? What stood out to you here?
I mean, there's a lot. It's really like what's going to win out in a matchup where you have this Yankees team that, from an offensive standpoint, has been brilliant. We know about their power. We know how well they can swing the bats. You know how effective this lineup can be. Boston's lineup has been a little bit more fickle. It's been very hot or cold. There's going to be stretches where they're the best offense in Major League Baseball. There's going to be stretches where they look almost like Cleveland, and that's been the theme throughout this entire year. You have good frontline starting, especially with Crochet getting the start first up for the Red Sox. You match that if you're the Yankees with Fried and a better offense. Really, this is going to come down to, first off, if your offense is going to be able to carry you. But if Aaron Judge has another Judgian type postseason like he did last year, and you don't get the same offensive support if you're the Yankees, now all of a sudden you got to hope that your pitching holds up, especially in this first game. And that pitching includes a bullpen, which has been all over the place this year. They actually, from an ERA standpoint, are the worst postseason team for relief pitchers, 437, 23rd in overall Major League Baseball. Again, last amongst postseason teams. And they saw these questions at the back end of the bullpen, Devin Williams, all these guys. So I think that the Yankees should be favored for this series overall. I think it makes some sense. I think you can make the argument that $1.85 seems a little expensive, which is what the opening price was here at Circuit for this series too. We saw some buyback on the Red Sox for it, but I trust this Yankees offense, and I want to make the case that Judge just had a rough stretch at a bad time last year, as opposed to going down the path of he's, Not ready for the moment. This guy can't play in the postseason sort of deal. But I do think $1.85 at first blush is a little expensive for New York.
Okay, so those are the American League wild cards. Let's go to the NL. The Cubs, a -125 series favorite against the San Diego Padres, available plus 105. And then the Dodgers laying -245 against the Reds. Cincinnati available plus 205.
How fun is this Cubs-Padres line or matchup? Because not only are we getting, I wish this was a longer series, because you get the true dynamic of these two different ballparks, especially where if the Cubs, we know about the wind blowing out and what that could do to affect it, what, of course, hitting is like out there in San Diego. So you get these dramatic shifts in terms of ballparks and their effect on the game overall, potentially. Looks like, total of 7. I couldn't find a total when I was looking last night, early this morning for game 1. So I'll be curious to see if maybe the wind is expected to blow in for this matchup and maybe going to keep this down. This is going to be a fun series because as the, some weather reports have it blowing in at like 5 to 10 miles an hour tomorrow. So we'll see if that's actually going to hold true. You get these two teams that have some like legitimate question marks for both of them. I mean, your stud rookie at the top of your rotation you expected to start for you for the Cubs is not going to be able to play due to, I think it's a rib injury. You look at the piecemeal rotation that the Padres have to put in front of a bullpen that's among the best here in this field, maybe the best outside of Cleveland, who has been very, very good. And then you get a Cubs team who offensively have been much more consistent than what the Padres have been. There's not that big of an edge here between these two, I don't think. I cannot wait to watch this series. I think this is relatively well priced. I thought we saw the Cubs at $1.25 at the open. I think that's pretty much where we're at right now. This is the series I am very excited for because I don't think there's much that separates them. And if you tell me one of the other wins, I would say that I'm not shocked, and that obviously that's baked into the price. If you told me now, pick one, I'd lean towards Chicago. I think they're the rightful favorite. But this lineup for the Padres, if they just get hot for a series or so against what's been a beat-up front-line rotation that hasn't been pitching particularly well in the second half, then I think it makes sense that they would move on. But I don't think there's any real discernible edge by my measure.
And then Reds, Dodgers, you got Blake Snell and Hunter Green going head-to-head in game 1. Big $2 favorite for Los Angeles at home in that spot, and more than that for the series. Total sitting 7.
Yeah, so, okay, this one, if the Reds were going to steal this, I think like this is going to be where you have to do it. Hunter Green, 276 ERA to start, 328 fielding independent. You look at his last 2 starts and in 4 out of his last 5, giving up 1 earned run or fewer in the way that he has been pitching. Obviously came back from that injury in August, has pitched relatively actually very well. Over that stretch, his lone blemish at the Athletics out there in Sacramento, 2 1/3, 5 earned runs. This might be the spot where you can go and get them. Problem is, it's the Dodgers. Like they're a pretty deep team offensively, but very quietly, as we've known about this team, bullpen. Little shaky, 21st, the second worst bullpen by ERA standards in this postseason field, behind or just ahead of the New York Yankees. Fielding independent 17th for relievers, so they haven't really been consistent as we know. It's not like the bullpen for the Reds is anything to write home about, but if you can snag one, if you get Green to go out there and give you a gem, you might have an opportunity here if you're Cincinnati to get this done, but I am not going to pick against the Dodgers. Although a 3-game series, that is random as hell, and you have no idea what's going to happen.
And hey, while you're watching the games tomorrow and beyond, nothing's going to go down smoother than some burgers from Omaha Steaks. Their smash burgers are pre-smashed, crafted with premium aged beef, go from freezer to bun just 5 minutes with juicy, unforgettable flavor. And we've got a VSiN exclusive for you guys. Get 16 free smash burgers with any order of $129 or more, plus 50% off site-wide. omahasteaks.com/VSIN. omahasteaks.com/VSIN. That's how you can get in there. Minimum purchase may apply. See site for details. You mentioned for your money the Seattle Mariners are going to win their first World Series. You believe that?
So.
Plus 450?
I hope so.
You want to dial it up?
Well, I already got the future from the summer.
That's true.
And, futures at this point, I hate to be a fuddy-duddy, but the time has passed. Unless you're betting guys that are like, if the series, you're down in the series a couple of games or whatever, trying to buy low there. But at this point right now, no point.
All right, we've got to step aside. We've got a Monday Night Football doubleheader coming up tonight. And to give us the Bengals side of things in Cincinnati, Denver, Jay Morrison of Sports Illustrated will join us next to break it all down.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We got a Monday Night Football football doubleheader coming up as we welcome you back here to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. SiriusXM Channel 158, Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. The Jets, a 3-point dog in Miami, taking on the Dolphins, total 44.5. And the Cincinnati Bengals getting over a touchdown, 7.5-point spread there in Denver, taking on the Broncos, same total at 44.5. And while I am not a big Broncos fan, JVT, I do continue to find it hard to believe that Bo Nix is more than a touchdown favorite against anybody. Yet we see the performance from Cincinnati last week against the Minnesota Vikings, paired with the Vikings' offensive performance on Sunday against the Steelers. I do have some questions, and hopefully somebody who can help us answer them. Jay Morrison joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, Bengals beat writer for Sports Illustrated. You get all the work at BengalsTalk.com. You can also follow Jay at @ByJayMorrison on X. Talk us through a little bit of the state of the Bengals right now. What's the attitude been like in the building this week?
Well, inside the building and outside the building are two totally different things. Inside the building, there's still confidence. I think they understand that as bad, ugly, whatever word you want to use, and they used all of them last week, as that loss was, it's one loss. And it got away from them in a hurry. There was just an avalanche of the turnovers and just a bad spot on the road, maybe the loudest environment in the league. A guy making his first start in about 2 years. It just all added up to something really, really ugly. And I think they're leaning back on what Jake Browning did in 2023 when he started 7 games after Burrow went out with a season-ending wrist injury. And I think they see a huge opportunity here. If they can go to Denver and get a win, it flips everything back on its head. They're 3-1. They're probably the 2 or the 3 seed in the AFC. They're tied for first in their own division. And if they go out there and lose, then you're looking at 2-2, really should be 0-4. They could be on the precipice of a lost season.
So how does this offense look? I wanted to specifically ask about Jamar Chase. 3 games, kind of boom or bust, 1 big one, 2 quiet ones. What is Jamar Chase's outlook for tonight? Are they going to try to get him more involved? Do they think it's been a problem? What his production has been like? How are they viewing his season so far?
Yeah, I think it's tough tonight because Denver has Patrick Surtain. He's the reigning NFL Defensive Player of the Year. You don't see cornerbacks win that award a lot. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Broncos just put Surtain on Jamar Chase and then double T. Higgins and make things really difficult for Jake Browning. It's been across the board. I mean, Jamar had the one huge game, 14 catches, 165 yards against Jacksonville, but hasn't been much of a factor beyond that. Same with T. Higgins. He has the fewest targets, fewest catches, fewest yards, and fewest touchdowns he's had through the first 3 games of a season in his career. They've really yet to get him going. And then Chase Brown was supposed to be this fantasy superstar this year, and they're really going to lean into the run game more, and he hasn't been able to do anything. And that was not an aberration against Minnesota. That was bad. That was 10 carries for 3 yards, and that was a continuation of what's been going on. So there's a lot of guys they need to get going, and I think it starts with Chase Brown this week because I do think so much of the attention is going to be on T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, who last time these two teams played in Week 17 last year, they both went over 100 yards. The Bengals win it in thrilling fashion at overtime. T has 3 touchdowns. It's only the second time since T and Jamar have been together they both went over 100 yards. So, yeah, that was last year, different team, but it was just, 5 games ago over the grand scheme of things. So there's some confidence there that can get this offense rolling.
Jay, I feel like so much of the success, though, for the skill position players comes from the quarterback and offensive line. And Jake Browning, through a little over 6 quarters now, has taken 4 sacks, 5 interceptions. This offensive line has struggled, and they're going to face a really good defensive line here for the Denver Broncos tonight. So how much is going to be put on their shoulders up front to try to open things up for everybody else?
Yeah, the offensive line is really kind of a big story here. They are going to start 2 rookie guards for the first time since 1996. It's going to be their 3rd different offensive line they've trotted out there to start a game in the first 4 weeks. It's dicey. The guys that they've been able to bank on, Orlando Brown Jr., the left tackle, he really struggled last week against Minnesota. A lot of offensive lines struggle against Minnesota. That's another reason that went so bad. They just went into that with a super conservative game plan. They couldn't run the ball, and that just put them behind the 8 ball. But it's got to be better. The rookie at left guard, Dylan Fairchild, they drafted him in the 3rd round. He started every game so far, but the turnover has been at right guard. First, it was Lucas Patrick. He gets hurt in the middle of week 1. They bring in Dalton Reisner, a former Bronco who's going back home to the team that drafted him. He's got a calf injury, but he practiced all week. He's healthy, and it looks like they're going to switch to their 5th-round rookie, Jalen Rivers. So that is a terrific defensive line. I don't know that they could be having Jake Browning take a lot of dropbacks tonight. Again, I think it's going to be a lot of naked bootlegs, a lot of runs, a lot of screens, get rid of the ball in a hurry.
Jay, with Noah Fant out, what does the tight end rotation look like tonight?
Yeah, so Mike Gesicki is technically their number 1 tight end, but he's more of a slot receiver. He just doesn't line up in line. He's not a blocker. So the guy that they're going to be leaning on when they go into 12 personnel to run the ball is Cam Grandy, an undrafted free agent last year. Had a really bad introduction to the team in Tennessee. He had 3 false start penalties in 1 game, but he's righted the ship, and he is a solid enough blocker. If you're talking fantasy purposes, over-unders, I would not put a dime on him to have any kind of production. He's going to be in there to block, and they still have Drew Sample, too, who they like to say is the best blocking tight end in the league, but if that was the case, I think the run game would be a little bit better.
Jay, do you have a feel for how this game is going to go out there in Denver tonight?
Yeah, I think it's going to be tight. I think that 7.5 number is a little too inflated. I think it's a little too reactionary to last week. I have a hard time picking the Bengals in this just because, as funny as it sounds, it seems like Denver's a little more desperate after back-to-back walk-off field goal losses. That team knows they can't go 1-3. So I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be right around the number, which I think is 44.5 right now. But I see it being a field goal game, and I have Denver 23, Cincinnati 20.
To that point, obviously, we know you cover the Bengals, but have you gone through some of the numbers for Bo Nix and what this defense is going to be facing? Stormy here makes fun of me all the time because I keep throwing out there statistically, Bo Nix, by some measure, might be the worst quarterback in the NFL right now, but he's taking on a Bengals defense that has had its own questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's really head-scratching because I thought he was terrific as a rookie, and you've got a quarterback whisperer and Sean Payton as the head coach, and you really expected that offense to kind of take the next step, and they haven't done that. That happens sometimes in this league where you guys have – look, I know Jaden Daniels is hurt now, but he came out of the gate a little slow. Teams kind of get a read on you after your rookie year and adjust, and I think the Bengals coming to town might be the best thing for Bo Nix because they've been better under first-year defensive coordinator Al Golden, but there's still some issues there, and they're a little banged up in the secondary. So this could be a get-right game for Bo Nix.
Jay, we really appreciate your insight today. Thank you so much for doing this. Enjoy the game tonight.
Okay, thanks for having me on, guys.
Appreciate it. Jay Morrison, again, all the work over at BengalsTalk.com, doing a great job covering the team for Sports Illustrated. Follow him on X as well, @ByJayMorrison. And you saw that passing yards prop up there for Bo Nix, set at 220.5. The passing touchdowns number 1.5, and the interceptions at 0.5 as usual. What's your general feel for this game tonight?
I mean, I took 7.5 with Cincinnati, so I'm kind of with Jay there in the thought that I think this is a really strong overreaction. If you go back to Friday when we were talking about the market power ratings like we do, this is a Bengals team that, according to the betting market at 7.5, is worse than the Cleveland Browns. And I just don't really buy that. I don't even think they're equals to them. I think they're still better, given what we know about this team and the talent that they have. Some numbers for you here, too, on Bo Nix. 30th in EPA, CPOE composite, completion percentage over expected. So he's 30th among quarterbacks. 35th in PFF passing grade, 5.6 yards per attempt, 7.3 average depth of target. How about this? This is, I think, the most jarring number for what we've seen from Nix. He has the 4th lowest pressure rate heading into week 4, Stormy, and Denver leads the NFL in pass block win rate. And yet here he is, barely being pressured and putting up numbers that are on par with being the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. Like that to me that's major regression. You can't ask for more. You have the best offensive line in terms of pass pro, and yet you're still putting up these numbers like you're, CJ Stroud under duress the entire time and not having any time to do with it. And he's not putting anything together through the early portion of the year. This
is a game I ultimately stayed off of. One of my Survivor entries. So, we have the one that we have together, which got by yesterday with the Houston Texans.
As did everybody else.
I also had the Buffalo Bills in another entry, and then my dad's pick this week for one of our 2 entries was on the Denver Broncos. So I'm just going to be sweating out seeing if Denver can win this game. But I do kind of think it can be close. I stayed off of it from a betting perspective just because I do not know what it's going to look like with this Bengals offensive line against the Broncos defensive line. I think that can be an uphill battle, in which case, like, I just don't know offensively what Cincinnati's going to do. I was trying to look at maybe for a Bengals team total under or something, but nothing ultimately that I could get on board with.
Last 30 seconds, I want to change gears really quickly because John Harbaugh has spoken. Lamar Jackson's hamstring injury about returning to the game yesterday. Quote, there was no way he could have gone back in that game, says Harbaugh. No official designation, but it sounds like very questionable for this week.
Okay. And I think there were a lot of people from the outside looking in that were questioning that just based on the state of the game at that point.
And Nnamdi Madubuike is officially out for the rest of the year.
Okay. All right. Great. Another major injury for the Baltimore Ravens. We'll hit on that and more as we go here on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Put on your tinfoil hats.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. The whole world gone crazy.
For Call Me Crazy, but...
All right, time for Call Me Crazy, but on an Overreaction Monday. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves. And this first one I'm going to say, I guess we're like-minded and you're not going to call me crazy. Because call me crazy, but the Kansas City Chiefs are going to win the AFC West again, aren't they? They're going to get to 10 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I think I put it better, which was the Kansas City Chiefs are going to fall ass backward into the AFC West title again, aren't they? I would agree. I mean, look, I think this is more about, and I would assume this is part of your logic, Joe Alt gets hurt, whether or not he's going to be available. It looks like Bo Nix might stink, and if that's actually true, we're not going to talk about the Raiders in any serious. We're not going to talk about them in any serious sense whatsoever. Like, so here we go. Like, they look awful. They get a team that was beat to hell with the Ravens, and they're just going to stumble into another AFC West title. I mean, if contracts with Satan are this easy to come by, can I get one? Like, I'll sell my soul for some success. This is absolutely ridiculous that we're here at this point right now.
As someone who did preseason add the Kansas City Chiefs to win the division, I would like that to happen, but where things sit right now, the Chargers are still your favorite at even money, but this was an odds-on number for Los Angeles prior to the loss yesterday.
Why would you not take a piece of Kansas City?
Plus 140 right now.
Plus 140. If the Joe Alt injury is serious, that is their only, I shouldn't say their only, we'll see if the Knicks-led Broncos turn these things around. But I would venture, as somebody who has not been pro-Knicks, I don't think there's going to be this insane turnaround. Why would you not take the odds-on preseason favorite at that price, given what's going on with some of these teams, especially if Joe Alt's going to be out for, an extended period of time.
Okay, where do you want to go next?
All right, so I'm going to ask you before I get to my next one. So look me in the eye here and have some faith in your partner, okay?
Okay.
Because this was the craziest week of football that I've ever seen in my life, and I can state that as a fact. Saturday, Brentford plus 242 against Manchester United. Well, stick with me here.
Looking at you in the eye.
No, stick with me here. This is crazy. I'm telling you, because this has been great. So this is all English Premier League. It's football. Listen to the weekend that just transpired in the English Premier League. Brentford plus 242 embarrasses Manchester United at home. 3-1 victory. Crystal Palace plus 340 on the three-way line. Gets the win outright. Game-winning goal in the 7th minute of extra time to upset Liverpool. Chelsea, the favorite on the three-way line, loses, gives up 2 stoppage time goals, gets called for another red card, their second in as many league matches, to Brighton, who was plus 259 in the three-way line. Sunderland wins 1-0, as they say, over Nottingham Forest. Stormy, they were plus 390 on the three-way line. Tottenham, who's a $1.90 favorite on the three-way line, needs a goal in the 4th minute of stoppage time just to get a draw from the Wolves, who don't have a win yet in league play, and we're nearly 6-1 to win that game. We're leading into the final minute of that match, and then on Sunday, we were on the air, and I was bugging you with it, but Arsenal, who's second on the table, is right behind Liverpool, can steal 3 points, is down the whole game to Newcastle, and then they get the eventual game winner in the 6th minute of extra time to steal 3 points. I have not watched a ton of football in my life, but you look at those big money line prices that were hitting on the three-way line and some of the drama, that was crazy. That was a wild weekend of English Premier League football. Maybe somebody can tell me there's been crazier ones, but having watched as much as I did this weekend, that was nuts to me.
Yeah, obviously, for a lot of the team names you were saying just now. It felt like you were speaking a foreign language for a second, but I did understand the numbers, and that is intense. That's a lot.
Okay, see, there we go. I knew you'd stick with me there.
My goodness. I'm going to go to the other football again real quickly. Thoughts on this? Call me crazy, but the 2026 quarterback draft class is going to be worse than this past year. We were all talking about how the Tennessee Titans were going to have to settle for Cam Ward because this class was so bad, and everybody's looking ahead to next year. What are we going to get when the 2026 draft comes around? There was all of the hype about Arch Manning. What does that look like? Are we supposed to be believing that Drew Aller or Cade Klubnik or even Lenora Sellers is the guy? Everybody's telling me Lenora Sellers is just going to be Anthony Richardson. So that's not going to be a successful measure. I don't know. The more I look at this, after all of the hype about this coming year's class and what NFL teams we're going to have on the horizon, seems pretty bleak right now through 6 weeks of the college football season.
It's funny because preseason it looked like it was going to be an incredible class. So, and look, it still could be. And maybe there's a deeper conversation to be had about, quarterback development. But in terms of odds for the first overall pick, it's a couple of non-quarterbacks that look like they're going to be pretty close to being a top selection, including some edge rushers that look really, really solid.
I mean, in the Heisman market right now, Dante Moore is your favorite at plus 750 after the win against Penn State.
Relatively well-deserved.
Simpson, 9-1.
Yeah.
Fernando Mendoza, 11-1.
Yeah.
Carson Beck, also that same price. Trinidad Chambliss, also making a name for himself with Ole Miss.
That's right.
16-1. The Ferris State guy coming up. Ole Miss has looked awesome, by the way, too.
They have looked very good. I did not think they were going to be great this year, but they have looked pretty good.
All right, what's next?
All right, we're spanning the globe here. We're doing everything. So call me crazy, but is there a more tragic end to a season than what just happened with the Minnesota Lynx over the weekend?
I feel for you. You lose the MVP. You loved Minnesota.
So for those who haven't really been keeping track, so first off, we'll start with Friday before obviously we leave the studio. Minnesota Lynx lose Game 3, 84-76 in a very physical, ugly game. They lose Nafisa Collier to an injury in the game. Cheryl Reeve afterwards goes on scorched earth, just destroying the officiating. Take a listen.
This is the look that our league wants for some reason. We were trying to play through it. We tried not to make excuses. One of the best players in the league shot 0 free throws. 0. And she had 5 fouls. 0 free throws. And so this is what our league wants. Okay. But I want to call for a change of leadership at the league level when it comes to officiating. The officiating crew that we had tonight, for the leadership to deem those 3 people semifinals playoff worthy is fucking malpractice.
Absolutely brilliant in terms of getting angry, but the season ends. She gets suspended. They get eliminated into the next game. You mentioned Nafisa Collier. She couldn't play in the game because of an ankle injury. You had Dejanay Carrington, your big acquisition at the trade deadline, who's supposed to help you out defensively. She's also, do you see the video of them? They're in matching scooters going around the floor. They have an ankle on the same, or they have a boot on the same ankle. And then you mentioned the other part. Not only do you lose and you get eliminated in that fashion, Nafisa Collier, because the unthinkable happens, and Asia Wilson and the Aces win a bajillion straight games to end the year. She loses out on MVP. She doesn't get Defensive Player of the Year. This was crazy to watch this completely fall apart for the Minnesota Lynx. And now we're staring potentially. We have a winner-take-all coming up tomorrow between the Aces and the Fever. But just like we all expected, the Aces might be taking on the Mercury in the WNBA Finals.
But then also, let's talk about the end of the game in general with the Lynx and Mercury. The double-digit comeback they had. Teams down 13 points or more in the fourth quarter of WNBA playoff games. 2-106 all time.
Wow.
So that does not happen. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Okay. How about this? Call me crazy, but Miami at a -105 price to win the ACC is still a really good bet. This team looks like a monster. I know you have a ticket in pocket already for them to win the national championship this year, but I pulled up their schedule looking down the rest of the way after they beat Florida the way they did 26-7. They're coming off a bye as they face Florida State this past week. That's probably a little bit frustrated with how that game on Friday night ended against Virginia. If they get through this game, Louisville, Stanford, SMU, Syracuse, NC State, Virginia Tech, and Pitt the rest of the way.
They look like a team that amongst these others, let's say outside of Oregon, because that was, I think, a pretty impressive victory for them out there on the road against Penn State. I don't want to say flawless, but definitely has the least flaws here. And again, the market just doesn't really dig it. They're 11-1 to win the national championship. They're still behind Georgia, Penn State, Texas, Alabama, Oregon. I'm listing off DraftKings numbers, but you get the idea. You're still getting this team at 11-1. I am flummoxed at the market's lack of belief in what this Miami team could potentially be. They look great at this point right now.
I think so too. I was peeking at the national championship odds board this morning when I was kind of going through that, and I was like, Ole Miss 20-1. A little interesting. Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead. I'll say that for Why Not Wednesday. This
is, I think, the easiest one. This is a layup. Now, I believe 3-18 ATS in his last 21 games as a head coach. Call me crazy, but Ryan Callahan is the worst NFL coach in the It's got to be it, right? That's it. To use your number one with a bullet. There's really no question about it. How do you give up play calling duties to make game management decisions, and then you still screw that up? It is a given that the Titans will send out our boy Joey Slye to miss a field goal right before the half. They screwed up that as well. They have kicking issues. He doesn't understand anything in terms of what's going on with game management. Their offense is abysmal. They can't get anything going at this point right now. And you and I watched the game together. I don't think it's for lack of talent at the quarterback position. Cam Ward is still showing all the pop and the verve that you need from your signal caller, the arm talents there. Callahan stinks.
It's getting embarrassing. And I don't know what they can do to fix it, because to your point, he already makes the adjustment to say, okay, I'm going to give up play calling duties. Bo Hardigree, you handle this so that I can focus on the team at large, and you're still making poor decisions. It's unbelievable to me. 0-4 to start the season, and for a game that was ripe with opportunity, especially with how slow starting the Houston Texans were offensively yesterday. It could have been a tie game at halftime, but instead a shutout, which was the largest shutout in franchise history for the Houston Texans. And reminder, guys, if you stick with us here on Money Moves, you get all of our best bets from not just our show, but every show here on the network at VSiN.com when you are a subscriber, VSiN.com/subscribe. You also get all of the articles previewing games, different sports. We got the NHL and NBA coming up. VSiN.com/subscribe. Get access to all of our articles and tools for 40% off today. Check it out. We'll be right back resetting hour 2 of Money Moves next.